If you want to boost your SAT score, you got to practice. If you want to practice as efficiently as possible, you got to be using Desmos often. That's what we're going to be doing in this series. We're going to go through the entire practice test. We're going to use Desmos whenever we should be, and we're not going to be using it whenever we shouldn't, because this one is so freaking easy that the problem was already done before you even knew I started it. We are done, and now we're moving on to the next one. John paid a total of $165 for a microscope by making a down payment of $37 plus P monthly payments of $16 each. That means we're doing $37 plus 16 times P. Now, what does that total out to? It totals out to $165, and looks like we got our answer right there. Let's move on. And real quick, y'all, don't forget, you got to go to this website if you want to actually improve your score. Now we're going to continue with the practice test. Well, I don't even have to read what they're saying because I can tell what they're saying by looking at all these answer choices. They're asking me to solve this for M. If I want to get the M on its own, I need to get rid of the 7. How do I get rid of a times 7? I divide by 7. And it looks like we is done. Once again, don't forget that website. That's how you improve. Best thing you could ever do for your SAT score. And I know everybody's going to be screaming, oh, I know how to type this one into Desmos. Why don't you show us how to type it into Desmos? Because it's too easy. That's why. Because it's just 24 plus 1, which is 25. Square root of 25 is 5. We're moving on. I'm faster than the Desmos in that problem. I want y'all to remember that this is only problem 5. That means you need to be able to get these ones done in seconds. So we're just going to look at the actual question. They say, what's the probability of selecting a student whose vote for a new mascot was for a lion? I'm seeing mascot, lion. I'm looking at this row. And I'm looking at the end, the total. That's very common that they ask you probability problems where you're going to take that total number and you're going to divide it out of the grand total, which will often be hiding in this little corner right here, 20 out of the 80 students. For confirmation, you can read this. It said this is for 80 students. 20 out of 80 is 1/4. We are done. We are moving on. That's my favorite website right there. In this one, they are giving us an equation. What do they want us to pop into that equation? Ooh, profit, $900. That's cool. I'll put that right here. And then they say, how many school posters do I have to sell? Well, X is the number of school posters, so basically just solve this for X. Okay, so let's move the minus 220 to the other side. It's plus 220. That's 1120. Now that's equal to 5x, so I just have to divide that by 5. Are we finally using Desmos? Yeah, why not? Let's do it. Let's do 1120 divided by 5. Okay, first time we actually needed Desmos. Didn't really need it, but whatever. We're done. We're moving on. Alert, alert, alert. We have a problem that's too easy. This is going to waste your time. Let's see. Y-intercept looks like it's about a positive 10. Not a negative 10. Get the hell out of here. Positive 10 y-intercept. All right, slope. This thing is heading down when it goes to the right. That means it's a negative slope. Answer's B. This was a waste of our time. All right, I know you guys are thinking, oh, I see 2 equations. I know I'm supposed to plug that into decimals. Nope. Subtract 2 equals 2y, y equals 1, done before you even typed it into Desmos. Watch out. All right, remember we're still in the early part of the test, so we only got baby problems here. What is the maximum data value in the data set? You just have to realize that they're giving you data values as low as 6, but a frequency of 3. That means that you have 3 6s. 7 frequency of 3, so that means you have 3 of those. And then by the time you finally get to the last one, 14, you would have 6 of those. So what does that mean for us? It just means that the maximum data value, it's still 14. So I'm explaining this with more than 2 seconds, but if you knew what you were doing, the answer for the maximum is 14 within 2 seconds. Time to move on. Here they got 2 circles. They're asking for the total area. They gave you the area of one of them. They only gave you the radius for the other. So what's the formula for the area of a circle? It's pi r squared. So for this one, we plug in the 4. We got pi times 4 squared. That is 16 pi. The other one, we want to add on the 100 pi. 100 plus 16. That's my boy right there. We moving on. Don't forget to hit up your boy. Here we got 4 minus 3x, 4 minus 3x, and they asking us about 4 minus 3x. I put a u over that because I like to think about this as if it was just 9u plus 2 equals 8u plus 18, and now I'm solving for u. How am I doing that? I am subtracting 8u on both sides. That means I will now have u plus 2 equals 18. That means u equals 16. What were they asking about? 4 minus 3x, but I called it u, so that means I already have my answer because this is 4 minus 3x. 4 minus 3x is equal to 16. We done. All right, they're telling us that we got 2 triangles that are similar. Let's make those triangles appear. Then they're telling us that we got G and K that are right angles. So let's say that G is here, K is there. All right, then it's FGH, so we got to put FGH and JKL. And now they're asking what is the value of sine J, but they're giving me sine F. So sine F means we have that the opposite could be 308 and the hypotenuse could be 317. So it could be something like this, 308, 317. Now for J, because it's similar, that must mean that I'm going to have all of these sides multiplied by the same thing in order to get me to the other sides. Now, maybe it's as simple as 10. If it's as simple as 10, then I'd have 317 with an extra 0 at the end of it, and 308 with an extra 0 at the end. And if I were to set up the opposite over hypotenuse for that, you would get 308 with a 0, 317 with a 0, but those zeros would cancel out. So you would get the same thing. So this happens with similar triangles. If you're dealing with equal angles from similar triangles, then your sine or your opposite over hypotenuse will end up being the same for each one. So answer here is B. All right, first thing we got to do here is draw a wire that's 106 across, but it's cut into 2 parts. So here's our cut, and one part is going to be called X, and the other part is Y. And then it goes on to tell us that the value of X is 6 more than 4 times the value of Y. So this is the equation that you get out of translating this sentence. But I know another equation I can write down just based upon how the diagram is drawn. I can say that X plus Y has to equal 106. But I know that 6 plus 4y, that is equal to x. So I can just put 6 plus 4y where I see the x, keep everything else the same. This will allow me to solve for y. So I'll just solve that for y'all. We get y is 20. But remember, y plus x was equal to 106, so that means 20 plus x is equal to 106, so that means x is equal to 86. We got a good problem here that will help us practice our units. They are asking us what is the best interpretation of x in this context. X is right over there. And the way I like to practice my units is to take my equation and think about the units that I have for the number that's on its own. Well, in this case, they're saying that it's total number of trees. So that means that the unit for that is trees. Okay, so what does that mean? That must mean that the unit for 5x must be trees, and this must be also trees. So that we have a certain amount of trees plus a certain amount of trees equals a total amount of trees. Okay, but now I got to figure out what's the unit of just the 5 on its own. Well, they're saying that the 5 is a hectare. Hectare is kind of like an acre. It's just a way that you measure land area. That doesn't really matter too much for our unit analysis, though. I'm just going to call that a hec. But remember, it's going to be hec times the unit for the x, which is going to have to somehow come out to a unit of trees. Well, how is that going to go down? Here's the answer. You're going to need to have trees per hectare, so that way the hectare part cancels out. So that must mean, just with a little bit of analyzing the units, that we're looking for trees per hectare in our answer. So trees per hectare, but is it for the industrial park or for the neighborhood? Well, just a little bit of reading will tell you that the 5 was for the industrial park, not the neighborhood. So we are done with this. So analyze the units. Hectares times trees per hectare must come out to trees, which is what we know it has to come out to by looking at the right side. First thing you got to know is that just like a tree has its roots at the bottom of a fraction exponent can become your root. So we're going to make this equal to the 12th root of a to the 11. Now I'm seeing the 12th root of a to the 132. That's clearly not going to be the answer. But now I can work backwards on some of these other answer choices and make this one 132 over, take that root and put it on the bottom. Could that be the same? Well, you know what? It actually can be, because if you multiply 12 by 12, you get 144. And if you multiply 11 by 12, you get 132. So yeah, that's actually our answer right there. All right, so to conserve our brain cells, we are going to open up Desmos finally. And they're telling us that g of x is the result of translating the graph of f of x up by 4. Now, what I wrote over here is f of x, but if I want to get g of x, then I'm going to need to put 4 plus whatever f of x was. And now they're asking me what's the value of g of 0, and because I'm using Desmos, it just calculates for me nice and quick. Even though that's not that hard to do without Desmos, it was kind of nice to just guarantee that I didn't make a mistake on the multiplication here. So answer is 76. Let's go. All right, looks like the SAT was trying to make your life a little bit difficult here, because when you type in these two equations, they look like they might be parallel, but if you scroll down, you can eventually click to get the intersection. And they're asking about that solution, but they want you to do x minus y. So you click on the thing to pull it in here, and we want to subtract x and y. So I actually want to put a minus sign in between them. Now those parentheses are not really going to matter here. So the answer here is 35. We're done. Oh look, cool website. They're asking about which of the following is the best interpretation of the y-intercept of this. Well, you get a y-intercept whenever x is equal to 0. In this case, instead of having x, we have t. So if you let t equal 0, then 0.65 to 0 would be 1, and you would just get that 8,000. That must mean we're going to go after one of the answer choices that has 8,000 in it. Now, is the 8,000 the minimum estimated number of coupons that they sent during the 5 years? Or is it the estimated number of coupons the company sent to the customers at the end of 1998? Now, if you've been practicing, you will notice that this phrase at the end of 1998, that's describing a certain amount of time. It's describing a specific time, actually, I should say, because it says T represents the number of years since the end of 1998. But wait a second. If T was equal to 0, if we were 0 years since the end of 1998, then when are we? We're at the end of 1998. So yes, that is definitely the one you're going to want to have in your answer choices. That phrase needs to be in there at the end of 1998. Very, very common problem. I like to call these problems the zero numbers, where you're going to be sticking in 0 somewhere, often for time. All right, this problem is a little hard to wrap your head around because of all these variables. So imagine if these variables weren't there. Just pretend that it was saying that we're going to put 88 ounces of water in a bucket in 5 minutes. Well, then how many ounces of water would the hose put in a bucket in 9 minutes? Well, how would you do that? You would just set up a proportion where you say 88 over 5 is equal to some mystery number over 9. Now, it wasn't really 88. It was supposed to be 88x, and it wasn't 5. It was 5y, and over here it wasn't 9. It was 9y. So now the proportion is set up correctly, and nice enough for us, though, is that the y's can actually cancel out on both sides, and all we have to do now to solve for that mystery amount is to get rid of the divide by 9. Well, how do I get rid of a divide by 9? I get rid of it by multiplying by 9. That'll get rid of it, and now you're left with this, and it looks like 9 times 88 is probably 792, and I should be done with the problem right then and there. All right, for this one, I do recommend just going to Desmos. It is going to take you a little bit of time to solve that by hand, but it's going to take Desmos very little time. When you get these vertical lines showing up, you want to zoom in and try to see where it's on top of, and clearly it's on top of -3, and we're done. Here they're saying that we have a triangle that's similar to another triangle, so let's start by making a triangle, and then let's make another one that's similar, so same shape. But then it tells us that the measure of angle Z is 20. So let's just pretend that this is X, Y, Z. And then the other one is R, S, T. And then the next fact that they give us here is 2 times XY is equal to RS. So who knows? Maybe this is 10, and then that would make this one 20. 2 times the XY is equal to RS. But that's actually not going to affect the measure of angle T. The measure of angle T is just going to be the same as the measure of angle Z, so we're done. All right, here they're giving us that f of x is equal to 9 times 4 to the x, and then they're talking about f of x plus 2. And they're saying that that's equal to g of x. But then all we got to do is replace the x with x plus 2. Now, do I see that answer here? No, they're not trying to make it too easy, but I can easily use a exponent rule that says that this must be the same thing as 4 to the x times 4 to the 2. Now, what is 4 to the 2? It's 16, and if I then multiply that by the 9 times 16, I don't know, what's that, 90 plus 6 times 9, which is 54, so it's 144 times 4 to the x. That's our answer right there.